Thank you, kids. Much appreciated. JD here. Good to have you on board. We always like to thank you, and we mean it sincerely when we say that you take some of your time to spend it with us here on the program, day in and day out. The exchange of ideas, the pugilistic endeavors of the transfer of you say, I listen, you listen, we talk, we have fun. Good to have you on board. Jesse producing, Don producing, working the dials, Mike screening the calls, emails at the website, and the poll question is up there for you today. A lot of pundits are commenting on Rick Perry's painful to watch, in last night's debate. They go from he just froze to his campaign is over. Your take on this? Nobody questions his intellect. Some question whether or not the campaign is viable or not, saying his campaign is over. Others say he's not ready to be president. Others say he had a brain freeze, and that's tied with the people who say all 7 of the above. I like the sarcasm. I appreciate the participation in said poll. If we don't like the results, we'll just throw it out. Kind of like O'Reilly, Fox, and now CNBC, following in true journalistic integrity that we see such on display day after day after day. It's amazing. We don't make any pretense about our polls. They're just opinion polls, right? And it's not like we're trying to skew the results. And they are what they are. And they're designed to give a snapshot of what's happening out there. And yet, once again, CNBC, after the debate last night, decided that because Ron Paul's people flooded the polls, exercised their right, that they have the right to take it down. We don't like it? When in doubt, throw it out. Same thing with O'Reilly. Same thing with Fox News. I thought the comments that were coming from the people were very interesting into just how slighted they felt by the actions of not just CNBC, but O'Reilly and Fox. And I think this really is striking a nerve, not just with the frustrations of the Ron Paul supporters, but with people in general who see that the system is rigged. That it's all about controlling the information. It's about how to package that information to benefit one party or another, one group or another, one entity or another. 60% of the people in this country think the system is rigged. And they want something done. Unfortunately, a lot of them want it done by the government to level the playing field. Well, you're not going to get a level playing field when the media is manipulating the information. Now, when you look at the consistency of Ron Paul and how he's on his game now like he's never been on his game before, you got to know that in those tone meetings that they set at MSNBC and CNN and Fox, that they're just pulling their hair out, trying to figure out how they make this guy go away. Damn it, Ron Paul won another poll. Unbelievable. So I guess we have to invalidate the poll. And we're going to tell them. We're even going to go so far as to not hide our bias against him and tell the Ron Paul people, do not vote in this opinion poll on this website that's open to everyone. And they voted anyway. How dare they? How dare they screw up our agenda? We can't have people think that there are people out there who actually think for themselves that like Ron Paul. That screws with our agenda. We just want him to go away. Now, why does CNBC want Ron Paul to go away? Why would they invalidate their poll? And in the statement, not even mention his name. A certain political candidate and his organization. Because Ron Paul's about auditing the Fed. Newt Gingrich picked up on Ron Paul's audit the Fed by saying, I want to see the records of 2008, 9, and 10. I want to know who Bernanke gave money to, lent money to, guaranteed money to on behalf of who, and who didn't get money who might have needed money. Maybe we'd need to know that information, and maybe an audit of the Fed would be in order. But you see, the problem for CNBC, who are there to be stock market cheerleaders, is they don't want people to see how the game is rigged. They don't want you to know that 60% of the bailout money went to foreign banking institutions. They don't want you to know that it went to French banks. They don't want you to know it went to Italian banks that are failing. Too big to fail, too big to save. Trillions of dollars at risk. Kramer last night goes, are you just saying that the U.S. banking system is just going to collapse? You're living in a dream world here because you have to understand of the interconnectivity of the financial system that we have now. And if they fail, we fail. We've already failed, folks. When we got to the point that we're making excuses for the bad behavior of our banking institutions and the crony capitalism and the greed and the corruption, we've already failed. We're already there. We're just trying to make it look like we're not. We're trying to buy more time. We're trying to Zoom more people. We're trying to suck more dollars out of people's pockets. And the frustration of the Ron Paul people, that's just with regard to voting in a poll. But those frustrations that they feel are the same frustrations that more and more people are feeling. And those feelings are along the lines that the average guy doesn't stand a chance. The average guy doesn't have an honest shot in competing against others. And in a certain way, I applaud poor people who are surviving more than rich people who are thriving. Because you've figured out with less how to do more. You've figured out how to pay your bills. You've figured out how to keep a roof over your head. And as long as we're talking about housing, riddle me this, Batman. Riddle me this. What's the percentage of homes that are in foreclosure or facing foreclosure? It's about 3.5%. We're supposed to believe that 3.5% of the U.S. residential housing market caused the entire international financial system to be brought to its knees? Does anybody out there believe that? 3.5% is usually the plus or minus margin of error in a poll. But it's not the margin of error with the banking system. 3.5%. 96.5% do pay their mortgage. The vast majority of people do pay their bills and continue to do so day in and day out. While more municipalities and states and cities and federal officials are digging deeper and deeper into your pockets and nickeling in you here and diming you there and taking more here where they can when you're not looking. And even these supposed Republicans on this dirty dozen debt super committee, when I said I had to apologize because I was wrong about them, they didn't agree to $200 billion in taxes. Yesterday I had to say it was $300 billion in taxes, and now I have to say I was wrong because today the number's $500 billion more. Oh, excuse me, revenue. If we call it revenue, that's not a tax. Yes, it is. Last night in the CNBC debate, they were talking about repatriation of funds. There it is yet once again. We have to repatriate those funds. We have to bring that $1.2 trillion that corporations have overseas back here so it can put the money. It can put it to use. What can we use it for? We can build plants. We can buy equipment. And then we can hire people to do what? Dust? What are they going to do when they're in that plant? What are they going to build? They're going to build what people are buying. What are people buying? Not much. Until there's a demand for product and service, there's no need to repatriate those dollars. And the only reason they want to repatriate those dollars is to give corporate America another thank you, courtesy of Congress. Instead of paying 35%, you only got to pay 7.5%. If you use it for plant and equipment, it'll be 5%. Others say, bring it back at zero tax. And when we inject that money into the system, that $1.2 trillion, it's going to create jobs because there's going to be factories. And they're going to be plants, and they're going to be building stuff. That who's buying? 70% of GDP is consumers buying stuff, products, utilizing services provided by businesses based upon the demand. But nobody last night wanted to get to that reality. Everybody's up there saying, my plan, this plan, that plan, here a plan, there a plan, everywhere a plan. Well, what are you going to do when your plan fails because there's no demand for the products or the services that's the driving force behind the economy? What are you going to do, blame it on the Democrats? Democrats stood in my way. They wouldn't let us build the kind of plant we wanted to build. It wouldn't build as tall as we wanted to build it, and they wouldn't build it where we wanted to build it. Doesn't matter where you build it. You can build it. They ain't going to come and buy the stuff. Until people get to a point where they're deleveraged, where they've paid down their debts, where they have a certain wealth belief factor that someone's going about to signal the all clear, and maybe one of these days these politicians and these crony capitalists and these greedy bastards on Wall Street are going to get out of the way and let the real economy take over. That would happen with an audit of the Fed. But they don't want you to know that. Ron Paul wants you to know that. But they don't want you to know about Ron Paul. That's why they have to invalidate his poll results, because he's right.
The Jerry Doyle Show.
The reason we have crook after crook and crony capitalist after crony capitalist and crooked Treasury Secretary after Treasury Secretary and Fed chair after Fed chair is because you need another crook to keep the crime going. When the bodies are buried, you don't want them to float to the surface. The cinder blocks that are stalling our recovery are still being draped over the bodies, the carcasses on Wall Street and Washington, D.C., that they're afraid will float to the surface. Unfortunately, the turds have floated to the surface. Those are our politicians. Stick with me.
The Jerry Doyle Show.